Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the World of Momos podcast. And today I have my friend Yasa with me, and we are going to talk about basically all that's going wrong around us due to Islam and people's inability to understand Islam itself. Um, so yeah, Antar, how are you? And what's happening in Finland?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Nice to see you again. Uh, I don't know. Finland is Finland. It really doesn't really matter what really happens over here. Nobody gives a fuck. But it's more like we are actually very interested in what is going on in the UK because our media is
Mm,
predictable, not really talking about real issues. And actually, if we didn't have X, like a
mm,
lot of Finnish people, like disproportionately are internet users and also disproportionately are X users. We are very influential on the internet, despite having a very small population. But if we didn't have X, we wouldn't know anything about what is actually going on in the UK. We wouldn't know anything about Tommy Robinson. We wouldn't know anything
mm.
about what's going on with Elon Musk. Wouldn't know anything about the grooming gangs coming out right now. Nothing. None of the Islamization is shown over here. None of this. Tommy Robinson doesn't exist in the Finnish media
Mm,
language. This
mm.
this is all this is all very foreign and exotic for us. So we would like to know what's actually going on in your country.
I mean, it's sort of strange because uh, because it happens over here as well. Like before new media really kicked in, and before all these things came into view of people didn't really pay attention to it. This is how the Muslim rape gang, as I correctly call them, they should be called Muslim rape gangs and not grooming gangs or whatever. I don't care if YouTube monetizes because I use the word rape, because that's what they are doing.
You
It's
can
not
just
what
say
I'm
grape.
advocating for.
They're like TikTok people. TikTok people say grape
Yeah, but
to,
like
to, to
I
pass the
hate doing that.
algorithm.
I hate doing that, like, because they like trying to massage our language and stuff to soften what they have done. It's like I'm not advocating for it. I'm reporting what has been done. I'm just stating the fact, right?
It's supposed to be an ugly word, right? It's not
It's
supposed
supposed
to be nice.
Yeah, exactly, because it's an ugly act. Like, come on. So, I mean, this is why it has gone on for these Muslim rape gangs for like 30, 40 years, because it has been covered up a lot, right? Because nobody wants to talk about it for whatever reasons. They didn't want to talk about it, and this is
the
the
weird thing
thing.
the weird thing
Yeah.
is that the covering up is not unique to the UK because we only
Hmm.
had recently last year the police has admitted we have street gangs, not Muslim gangs, not rape
Hmm.
gangs, like the overall street gangs. They have admitted that we
Hmm.
have them, and we've had them for 10 years. Like these
Hmm.
Muslim gangs have been here for since the 2015 2014, since the Syrian refugee
Yeah,
crisis that
since
actually
Muslims have been there, right? So,
brought a lot of Iraqi men who brought this
but
ISIS gang
isn't
jihadi.
isn't that like a really pertinent thing which people sort of miss? The Muslim gangs have been in Finland since Muslims have been there, right? Since these Muslims have been there, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they just
I'm not talking about old Muslims
can't talk about. Yeah, obviously, yeah.
people before the so-called Syrian refugee crisis, which
Mm.
actually just brought like Somali and Iraqi people into the country. Uh, Before it, we're talking about so-called old refugees or old immigrants
Yeah.
who are actual refugees, who are actual
Hmm.
dissenters, ex-Muslims,
Yeah.
thought thinkers,
Mm.
political
Yeah.
prisoners, and all of that. And of course, those people are going to be integrated. Those people
Yeah.
are not going to join gangs. And
Yeah.
those people are me. I'm not part of
Hmm.
any gangs.
Yeah.
And but so watch out. But
The Finnish Kurdish
these
alliance.
so-called newcomers who have been here for over 10 years now, it's obvious. It's
Mm.
obvious they brought this
Mm.
ISIS gang mentality, roadman mentality, a
Yeah.
lot of influences from the UK, a lot of influences
Mm.
from other European countries, especially Sweden. Sweden
Mm.
has have this for a
Yeah.
longer time because they took a lot of
Mm.
Muslims also. at the refugee crisis, but before that also, and they have failed grossly at the
Mm,
integration of Muslims. But that's given. Nobody's ever
yeah.
succeeded in integrating Muslims, so it's kind of given that they're also
Mm,
going to fail at it. Uh, but we just yet last year or
mm,
the year before that, very recently, have
mm.
the establishment and the police actually admitted
Admitting it.
that there are street gangs,
Mm,
but they are never ever admitted still that it has anything to do with immigrants, anything to do with especially Muslims. Muslims are like, no,
mm,
no, no, no. You can't even like you can't even
mm.
associate the word Muslim with gang in Finnish
Yeah.
mainstream media. That's banned,
Yeah.
absolutely banned. It's
This is what I'm saying. Like, this is what I don't understand is they have their agenda. That's why they're doing it, obviously. But are people
it's
blind?
not that
But
it's not
are
that individual Muslims actually have an like an agenda. They're not capable
no,
of
no. I mean the
thinking of
yeah,
this.
no. If they believe in Muhammad, like I don't really rate their mental, like intelligence that much. But what I'm saying is like the mainstream media and the left, political left, they have their agenda, right? So they are going to suppress these issues and whatnot, even though they personally might not agree with what is happening. They're going to suppress it because they're using it as a tool to further their agendas, right? But are
Actually,
people,
I
personal
think
people, like individual
it's
people, are
both.
they so blind, like that they can't see it, they still
I think
support
they see it.
it?
I think they see it, and it's both. It's that they also further the agenda, but they're also afraid of, like, if a lot of these things come out, who are people are gonna vote? The left
Hmm.
wing? No, Uh, people are gonna vote the opposite of the left wing
Hmm.
when these things come out, and it's both. Like, if they don't come out, they get a lot of Muslim votes. They don't have to critique Muslim problems at all. They don't have to talk about Islam at all, and they
Yeah.
just get the Muslim vote. And if these things come out, they lose. They lose uh, the
Hmm.
original people's vote.
Hmm. Yeah.
So they're playing this weird game where they have to, like, hide this and bring out this and that, and
Yeah.
to keep afloat, and it's very artificial. Like, the modern Western leftists, if they just let the natural progression happen, and actually debate people, and actually,
Hmm.
like, see what's going on and talk the truth, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
That's simple as that. They just wouldn't exist. There wouldn't be any leftists left, and
Yeah.
that's why they are
Yeah.
doing
They
this.
have to artificially do it. And the other thing, other part of that also is like, if debate was allowed as is supposed to be allowed in the Western civilization, Islam itself would not exist over here, right? A lot of the reasons why people don't integrate is because Islam exists. Like, a lot of the Muslims don't integrate is because Islam exists, and we've seen, like, before mass immigration, before the heavy lifting of mass immigration, and before immigration of any sort from places like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, or all these areas, even Syria and places like which are impoverished places, which usually have people coming in who are not that educated. They might be personally educated. They might be like, this is what I try telling people as well. There's a difference between person being academically educated, as in like had qualifications and stuff, and a person having a cultural education, right? Because these people lack a lot of cultural education. So they might personally be doctors and stuff, but they'll still commit those heinous crimes because they don't have cultural education, right? So before we mass immigrated people, the West mass immigrated people from these areas, the Muslims that were in these Western countries weren't that much of Muslims, right? Because it had like died out. Now if people had more of a brain, if people had more of an understanding, not more of a brain, more of an understanding of Islam, and actually wanted to do some like proper long term good, they would have killed Islam in the West at that time, right? And that was the time to do it. But we can see now that after the mass immigration is where Islam has become a problem, because Islam has become Islam in the West as it is in other countries. It's allowed to be that, right?
Yeah, and it's self-replicating because,
Yeah.
like, even like before, you'd have small amount of Muslims come into Europe, and they would actually integrate because there was not a Islamic system
Mm,
looking over them and actually demanding all of these Islamic ways. No, they were free to do what they want, and nobody
yeah,
was looking after. And now that they have established their mosques, their areas, their representatives, their whole so-called communities, and heavily helped out by leftists that think they're doing a
yeah,
multicultural thing, now they have the systems.
yeah.
Now an average Muslim does not have the opportunity to liberalize, to
Mm,
secularize, to actually integrate into the country because they're getting watched over. They're getting watched over by the imam, by the community,
mm,
by the people who are constantly demanding this and that, and to be
yeah,
better Muslims. And
yeah,
they have a system in place
yeah.
now.
And this term multiculturalism as well, like like most of the leftist terms, they mean something and they say something else, right?
Mm.
Because multiculturalism is never like in Finland, British people getting their culture recognized, right? It's never that. It's always these savage cultures that are getting
Yeah,
elevated,
the,
even
the
though they're
most
savages,
ironic thing
right?
the most ironic thing is that Islam is the world's most
Hmm.
monocultural
Yeah, yeah.
fascist
It has
theocracy.
destroyed cultures wherever it has gone. It has destroyed the national cultures.
It is the most
Hmm.
monocultural theocracy
Yeah,
in the world, the biggest one,
yeah,
the most oppressive one. So how are you going to take this, which does not allow multiculturalism, put it next to your culture and call it
yeah.
multiculturalism? It's
Exactly.
it's it's
Yeah,
it's bonkers. It
but
doesn't
it's
make
also
sense.
like, so. I was watching a bit of the series Ted Lasso on Apple TV, right? Because a lot of people were talking about it and stuff. And straight away, I could spot like a lot of leftist agenda in there. So it's about this football club in England. This manager comes from America. He has no idea what football is, and then he starts managing a football club. Right? It's supposed to be funny and stuff like that, but they have this character in there. This football this player, and he's from Nigeria, right? uh, and he is the most morally superior guy all of a sudden in the whole team. He's fighting for the eco rights and stuff. I'm not gonna wear the sponsor's brand because it's a Qatar Airways or whatever the airways that they named or whatever, that supports an oil company and stuff, and he took a stand, and like he's so superior and stuff, he's doing all the good things and stuff like that, right? So that is a leftist agenda, like moralizing that just because he's from Africa, all of a sudden he's morally superior, right? And he's so intelligent. It's like you can see what they're doing, right? As if Africa has ever created anything of any use to the entire world. It hasn't. I'm sorry, that's a fact. They have not created, invented a single thing that the world has ever used, right? But somehow they are more useful than anyone else. They have more moral superiority of the same people who sold their own people, who conquered their own regions and stuff, took slaves and then sold them to Europeans. They are morally superior somehow,
You know,
right?
talking talking about Africa, we lately had a like a media thing in Finland where a Senegalese Muslim preschool teacher guy, which is like a guy from Senegal, Muslim
Yeah.
working in preschools, which is in itself very weird. But he joined the leftist party, and we are soon to have elections and municipality elections, and he's an candidate. And he started his campaign apparently by going to the media and announcing that he's leaving his job because there are racist tabletop board games, and especially a game called Africa Star, which is like a Finnish classic game which came out in 80s. It's about going to Africa and finding diamonds
Mm.
and getting robbed maybe. But the funny thing is the robber in the game is a white guy. But this guy, without maybe ever playing the game, started saying that the game is colonialism, it's racism, and the Finns are all racist. Finns are colonials, which is highly ironical because Finland has been colonized 2 times and never
Yeah.
never colonized anybody else by Swedes and by Russians.
I've never
Finns have
known Sami people to be colonists, so like I don't know what they're talking about. Yeah.
and this has been a huge thing, and all the leftists jumped into the bandwagon, like protecting this guy and being and agreeing with him that, oh, this board game is highly racist. It's about Finnish colonialism and it's about colonizing Africa, and we have to be better. And oh, he's a poor Muslim. Also, think about Palestine and all of this bullshit. Lately, couple of
Mm.
weeks has been dominating
Mm.
Finnish media about how brave this guy was to take the stand against evil Finnish colonialism. And you see that even these colonial Finns, they're also supporting evil colonial
Yeah.
Israel. And this guy always brought this back to Palestine and back to Israel. And he is like typical Muslim. He dressing in freaking dresses, like
Yeah.
Muslim dresses, and teaching in preschools, teaching in Finnish preschools. For apparently last 10 years he's been teaching in Finnish preschools, and he just announced in the media that he's quitting his job because his job is so racist. And people are actually laughing about this, like, dude, you
Mm.
work in a preschool, these are freaking games, and you're supposedly getting very offended about a game that doesn't even actually have any racism or colonialism. It's about children going to Africa to find diamonds.
What children? What children are calling him the N word in school? I would like to know.
That would be amazing.
And you know,
Think about going to work and these little racist kids are just
yeah.
calling you the
And like this is to actually highlight, not like to say that the people of Africa, which live in the continent of Africa of many different regions, are worthless. This is to say that there has to be a proportional like element to it, like how you see things. We can see there's a propaganda, right? There's a propaganda to moralize anyone who's outside the global majority as the better of humanity, and to portray Western civilization as the aggressor, the colonizers, the ones that have always been bad and stuff. Even though, and this happens a lot because they try to find some element. This is the reason why they cling on to Islam so much, the leftists as well, because outside of West they have like a huge they had a huge expanse of their empire that they colonized and stuff, right? And they have built these myths that they were like, in the golden age, that they invented so many things, whereas they didn't. They had ideas that didn't actually work. There was no practicality to the ideas and
No,
stuff.
they just stole Persian scientists and called
Yeah,
them Muslim
exactly.
inventions.
Exactly. But they're so desperate to do that, and they just, because they don't want to recognize the influence that the West has had,
I
right?
think the leftist obsession is actually not about like exalting or helping or promoting or
No, 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 no.
moralizing
It's
people of
anti-capitalist.
no.
Anti-cap.
It's it's
Yeah.
it's more about like demoralizing
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
white people as a white person, and then being like, I am better than you.
Yeah.
They're actually using
Mm.
minorities as a stepping stone to exalt themselves and be like, look
Yeah.
how morally superior I am
Yeah.
compared to all of these other racist white people
Yeah.
around me, evil racists
But
unlike me. I am very good.
but I think so. Like it's a huge like a communist effort as well, because they want to portray that like, because they can't say that capitalism has failed, right? They can't say capitalism was not successful. They can't say, because the evidence is there, right? So what they can say instead is, even though capitalism brought riches to the West, it was
It's
at the
evil.
expense of the loss to humanity. So this is their reason why they do it, because they know they can't say like, oh, the capitalism didn't make or even colonization done rightly like the British did, and it should have maintained. didn't bring Britain riches and success and stuff. So they can just say like, oh yeah, Britain was like extremely like racist, as if every single British soldier was going around and raping and beating the ethnic minorities and stuff like that
Many
in
times
other
quite the
countries.
opposite. Many times quite the
It had
opposite.
to be the opposite because there
Yeah.
weren't enough English people to do that, right? So
Yeah.
like 10,000 people were controlling millions of people. Like they couldn't do that without cooperation from the
They
local
they have
areas.
they always had officers of
Yeah,
the same
they
same native.
learned their languages and like they
Yes, yes.
integrated themselves
That's
into
how
the.
colonialism works.
Yeah,
That's it's a it's a of course it's like bad to conquer it. Of course it's bad to genocide. Of course it's bad to enslave people. But this is not the what the leftists are actually arguing about.
no, no,
They're arguing about the whole system,
yeah,
the whole
mm,
capitalist system, which has its flaws. Nobody is
obviously,
like it's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
No, nature is not perfect. And when we're
yeah.
talking about capitalism, we're actually talking about the natural progression of things, natural economy, free economy, how things actually work if you let them work. You
It's a
don't
human,
meddle.
human way of doing things, right? And humans are flawed, so they are going to make mistakes. They're going to create monopolies. They're going to create things, and then it will reset itself. It will course correct, right?
Yeah, and I compare this like, how do we achieve AI? Do we hard code and everything in
Mm,
it like communism? We try to
yeah,
regulate
yeah,
prices.
yeah,
No, AI doesn't work like that. We let it run its course. We let it
yeah,
learn itself. We had
yeah,
let the nature take its course, and that's what basically capitalism is. But they really like to turn it around. Also, they're
yeah.
like, oh, it's capitalism is control. Capitalism this and
Mm,
that, and sometimes it is.
yeah,
Sometimes natural progression is that somebody gets a monopoly and starts control
yeah,
things, but usually it dissipates. If it's not a good thing, it usually
yeah,
dissipates into many parts and this and that.
yeah,
And that is also part of the natural progression. But what they don't understand, that you can't really control forces of nature like economy,
no,
wind,
no,
like oceans. Are you going to
mm,
control oceans? Are you going to control
yeah,
world economies? It's impossible.
yeah.
It's impossible.
But this is how this thinking of theirs is what leads them to not understand Islam properly, right? Because they see, a, not understand Islam properly, and b,
They think it's
favor and
controllable. They
but
think it's controllable.
no, but b, also they favor Islam, because I think so there's two different thoughts within the left. One is that thought being used by the hierarchy, the elites and stuff, is I think so they think that they can use Islam to control people. That's why they think Islam is a good religion for them. That's why I see a lot of the elites favoring Islam and trying to get Islam in. And I think so if Britain falls to Islam is when the whole West will fall eventually, because Britain, no, people might not
It's the
want to
perfect
accept
it's
it
the perfect
because
slave religion. If
no,
there is an
yeah,
elite, if there is an elite that is trying to enslave the
yeah,
rest of the people and kill the middle class,
yeah,
what is a better control system than Islam?
yeah,
Also, what is like think about leftist parties. How freaking convenient that you can just say Islam is good and shake
yeah,
the hands of an imam, and you get 10,000s of votes. You don't have to
yeah,
talk about anything. You don't have to lift your ass. You don't have to actually know about anything. You don't
yeah,
have to do anything. You just get votes. But what people like me and you are proposing, that hey, you should maybe actually learn something, and that is
yeah,
too way
yeah.
hard. It's not
No,
convenient. It's hard for them, and they lose
no,
votes for it.
they think they know everything, right? So they think like, so this is the reason as well, right? Because they are okay with everyone else becoming Muslims, the whole Britain becoming Muslim. I think so they're okay with
Hmm?
that, and they would prefer that. But they're just
Yeah,
trying to make it into a moderate Muslim country, right?
easily
So
controllable
yeah,
people. Easy, very
because
easily controllable.
see Saudi Arabia, right? Everyone is a Muslim, but the
Mhm.
kings don't really have to follow Islam, right? The
Yeah.
elites don't have to follow, just like communism, right? So everyone is a communist, but the top brass of communists are the most capitalist people, right?
Might
They're
have a
the,
couple of companies here and there.
yeah, like like they'll be living in luxury and stuff like that, and while all the worker bees just shut up and work, right? And this they keep thinking that Islam is a tool for that. because obviously they don't have any morality. They don't have any faith. They don't understand what is right and wrong. They just think that what is right is whatever they can achieve in their lifetime, right? Whatever their free market liberal mind wants to achieve, they can achieve that, right? And that's what they are owed. This is just one life, we got to live to the fullest, and that's it. And that's where the problem happens, because they don't give a shit, like whether Islam is actually evil or not, because they don't believe in that. They just believe in the convenience of things, and it's a
Yeah,
problem.
and the thing is, they don't want to get their hands dirty at all,
Hmm.
at all. Like they'll support the nice looking things. They'll be like, oh, these things on your heads, these scarves, they look nice.
Oh
They
yeah.
look fashionable,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, oh yeah, we'll do women's swimming classes
Yeah.
for only Muslims. That sounds
Yeah.
feminist enough. Like all of these very simple, stupid.
Yeah.
They will support it, but they will never talk about the huge
Actual thing. Yeah.
thousandfold list of problems that everybody sees. They will never talk
Yeah,
about that.
because they don't have that themselves, right? Because they don't have, like, if, like, let's imagine, right? Like, because this is something that atheists would disagree with me on a lot, right? But just imagine if the whole country was actually Christian, but believing Christians, right? So they would have some sort of an understanding of right and wrong from the perspective of not just themselves. Even they don't have to investigate, they don't have to philosophize too much into it. They just have a coded method of knowing what's right and wrong. And when that society, let's say 90% of it was believing Christians, and acting 70% at least of it was acting as Christians as well, when they meet a force like this of Islam, they would instinctively know that it is bad. They would not need to philosophize it, they don't won't need to moralize it, whatever. They would know it's wrong because they have a code already, which they would think is superior, as they
Yeah,
should
well,
be.
a lot of these so-called liberals and leftists and atheists have a code too. They know that murder is wrong. They know that
Hmm.
rape is wrong. They know that having child brides is wrong. They know that stoning people is wrong. Terrorism is wrong. They know all of this, but they just don't apply them.
Because they reason themselves out of it. This is where I think it happens, right? Some, if you have an instinct, if you have like this religion and stuff, and it's instinctively telling it's wrong, no matter, like, you don't have to reason yourself out of it, right? Because most of these liberals, I think so, they just reason themselves out of it, because they're like, well, how can they deny someone else their religious rights when we all are supposed to have free speech and freedom of thought and stuff like that? I think so there's a lot of investigation that liberals need to do of why sometimes over reasoning is actually a problem for humans, especially when it comes to contact with
But
other societies.
that's also very selective. Not all, they will never over reason some topics. Like only the topics that are very convenient for them. For
Hmm.
example, being tolerant of Islam, they will use a lot of over make up
Yeah,
things and overcomplicate things and
but like they're
make it
doing that
seem
to trans as
complicated.
well, aren't they? They're doing it to trans as well, with
Yeah,
trans
yeah,
issues
yeah,
and those issues and stuff. Like, this is what.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing, but I don't think they intuitively are like I don't think they are really thinking what they're doing. They're doing what is easy because
Hmm.
leftist people are not known for being deep thinkers
Hmm.
or doers or actually like people
Wanted
who
to
know about.
struggle. Yeah.
No, they hey, come on, you want the state to take care of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That should tell
Yeah,
everything.
that's a good point. Actually, yeah, they are averse to struggle and strife and stuff, and they want to pick out the easiest way out as well, right? So this is how they are reacting, and I should say, like, when I say like the liberals are overthinking themselves, I don't mean every single person, right? I mean like the top brass, which is supposed to
Yeah, yeah.
lead the liberal thought. They are,
10% of them
yeah,
talk, 90% of them
yeah.
follow.
So
Yeah.
when if liberalism is like not that liberal and is embedded within, I think so, a Christian thought, more of a Christian thought, it would be averse to Islam and all those things. It would not need to rationalize
Yeah,
itself,
well,
you know.
that's also built in Islam, and that's why you
Yeah,
won't see any other cultures or religions
yeah,
in Islamic countries,
yeah.
because they have the intuitive built-in system
Hmm.
that's been told to them since they were kids, that anything non-Muslim is bad.
Hmm, hmm.
But
Good point.
I see the, like, where would that intuitive thought come from? Well, of course,
Hmm.
from how you raise kids and how do you teach them to treat
Yeah,
other religions and all of that,
and
and
who's
which is, I
around
think,
those kids when they're growing up as
yeah,
well.
and I don't think the emphasis should be that anything non-Christian is bad,
No, 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 no. Yeah,
but
yeah,
like Muslims
yeah,
are doing
yeah,
anything non-Islamic is bad.
yeah,
And that is actually true. You know about this,
yeah, yeah.
like anything that has nothing to do with Islam is bad, because
Haram
everything
is
has to do
completely haram.
something
It's,
with
yeah,
Islam. Yes,
yeah,
the whole world has to do something with
yeah,
Islam before it's good.
yeah.
Uh, and I think that's not a very good thought
I
to.
don't think so. Christians have that in them, anyways. They don't think like anyone outside is completely bad. They just don't. I think so. What they used to do, which they have stopped doing, is they didn't used to recognize the gods of other people as valid gods, right? And this is something that was useful. Not like, okay, it was actually very useful when it comes to the Vikings, right? When the Viking invasion came, this is why even when England was like just a little pocket left in, like, under Alfred, it still fought against the Vikings and kicked them out, right? Because they didn't give in to their faith. They didn't think, okay, yeah, maybe your god is also existent, is also fine and stuff like that. Now we can change that god, if we want to, for this conversation, to a set of ideas, values, and traditions as well, right? So it would be fair to say, like, after a while, when even after the Enlightenment era, the British didn't think that any other culture was superior to theirs, right? Any other values, traditions, and culture would be superior to theirs, which is a good way of thinking. That's how Japanese should think as well, Chinese or whatever. And they should try to make theirs better. It's like, no, our way is better and it works for us. We should not let other people who do not have our best interests at heart come here and dilute our values, cultures, and religions and stuff. We should evolve as we are supposed to evolve over time, and the Brits have evolved over time, right? It's when they have met this force, like, and this is true for every individual Western country, right? When they have been met with this mass immigration and a thought that we have done something wrong, we have some sort of an original sin that the Western countries cannot shake themselves off, right? That's when the issues have happened. Before that, like, Christians and Jews and other religions were living happily within Britain,
Yeah,
or within other countries as well. If,
Hindus,
yeah, like,
Hindus.
yeah,
How many are Hindus causing problems? No,
exactly. you know
no. A
but you
lot
know
of
what,
them are very patriotic.
I would say, like, they would also cause problems if their numbers increased, and England kept on cucking to other cultures over theirs, right? They will start taking the piss as well, because everyone would, if their numbers would increase to a degree. They won't do it as much as Islam does, because Islam is unique in that, because it is an ideology of conquering, right? Of
Mm.
conquering and overtaking and stuff like that. But they would do as well, like other Indians and stuff. I've seen Indians who have come over here a lot since Boris Johnson opened the doors to them, and then Rishi Sunak and everyone. A lot of them have come over here. They live in enclaves as well.
Yeah,
They don't integrate. They live there in their own pockets and stuff, and they make little India wherever they go. I don't like that. you know that's also destroying parts of the country, like, what is happening. But imagine if those, let's say there's 200 Indians living in my city where I live, of, like, let's say there's 300,000 people living over here. 200 are Indians, right? When those 200 become 50,000, right, they will do the same thing. They like, because it's nature, because you're not asking them to assimilate or integrate. There's no point.
Yeah, but
They don't get any
it still
benefit
has
out of it.
it's still different than Islam though, because
Obviously it's
like
different because it won't be violent, it will be natural, right? So
yeah,
this is what naturally happens with Islam, with Muslims anyways. And the problem with Muslims is they are Muslims of like different countries, right? So they, we can say like, we are comparing Indians, if we're comparing Indians to Pakistani population or to Bangladeshi, Afghanistani population, then we will be like, okay, there's 50 Afghanis, there's 100 Pakistanis, and there's 25 Bangladeshis, and there's 100 Indians. So that's fair. Like everyone is like, no, no, no. Those Pakistanis, Afghanis, and Bangladeshis population
they're
is
one
all
group. They're one
exactly.
group.
That's where the problem happens. Yeah. Just interrupting your listening to give you a short message. If you like my work and wish to support me, please consider becoming a paid subscriber on my Substack. This will help me and enable me to keep most of my work for free and evade the hands of censorship. Because I don't like mincing my words, and I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want me to mince my words as well. We should all be able to tell the truth as it is supposed to be told. So please help me and support my work by becoming a paid subscriber on my Substack. The link will be in the description below and should be up here somewhere as well. Thank you. Now back to the video.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like for example, you have 50,000 Chinese people. You might get a
Mm,
Chinatown. You
mm,
might get some criminals,
yeah.
but mostly you will get hardworking people in
Yeah.
normal families. Like you can take a lot of Hindus. Yes, you will have
Yeah.
probably some fucked up things happening, just like in any population, right? Any population that size is gonna have freaking crazy people.
Yeah.
But Islam is unique in itself that it's supremacist.
Yeah,
It's
it says first goal is to conquer and like that's everyone's like the thing is like it's a very important point that you putting out like the differences of Islam. And I should say like the Indians and Chinese and stuff, they will obviously cause problem if there's no like, if there's no application of like, okay, this is the main culture, this should be here, this is why
yeah, but they
Brazil is
don't have
integrate
issues with
disintegrate.
integrating. They don't have a system that is constantly telling them to not to integrate,
Yeah, but
like
in
Islam
Islam,
does.
is the duty of every individual Muslim to spread the word of Allah. Okay, it's
Yes,
not the
to
it-
not integrate.
exactly. It's not. We don't have like Muslims don't have a pope. They don't have a Catholic church or something
No,
that is the, because that's what Christians have. They have like, churches and stuff. They have mercenaries. It's their responsibility to do it. In Islam, it's the responsibility of every single person.
yeah,
So when
and that's
every
why
single
every
person,
woman is a nun.
exactly, every
Yeah,
woman is a nun. Every guy is either a
a preacher.
mercenary or a
Yeah,
jihadi or a preacher. They are the works of Islam. They work for Islam, each individual. That's what the difference is.
the difference is a religion and a cult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And just
Oh,
because there are more members of the cult doesn't make it right. Because I hear this argument a lot. Yeah, but there's 2 billion of us. Like, so that means it's a bigger problem. Not
th-
that it's not a
th-
problem.
there are tens of millions of Mormons.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
It's
there's more
still a
Christians.
cult.
I mean, there's more Christians than Muslims. So, do Muslims agree then that Christianity is the right religion? You know,
It's not
it,
a popularity
yeah,
contest. Like,
exactly. Yeah. But I don't know, like, how we come to the point of, 'cause it's very hard to make people understand this reality, especially when they haven't lived among these people, or they don't have a curiosity, they just want to be left alone, and I understand that, right? uh, like I always say, like, now this is the nerd in me coming out, right? Because I always say like there's two parts of me, right? One part of me is Tom Bombadil, and the other part of me is Gandalf, right? And I'm always conflicted between the two, where I should be at what point.
I think exactly the same. I have one part of me is like, leave all of this bullshit
Mm,
and just go live your life. Don't give a fuck,
yeah,
and just let them rot. You don't
yeah.
don't get your hands dirty. And the other part of me is like burning inside, like fuck's sakes, I have to do something.
Yeah, I mean, and so I understand if people choose the Dom Bombadil side, because I think so most of the time, I mean, if the situation was not that bad, and if I didn't love Britain that much, I think so I would choose the Tom Bombadil side
Yeah, yeah, and you probably
in a heartbeat.
you probably should. All of us
Hmm.
probably to like if you think about your personal
Yeah,
well-being
yeah.
and wealth and social life and all of this that makes
Hmm.
you happy. You probably should. You probably should never get your hands dirty with Islam because
Yeah,
Islam is the dirtiest shit
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Like
It
it will
corrupts
make you
everything.
dirty.
The thing is, like, it corrupts you so much, and it's so
Because if you
bad.
you stare at the abyss, right?
Yeah,
It will stare back. It
yeah.
will stare back. Yeah.
It is that, and it's hard to make people understand how bad it is. It's the same as like trying to, like, people have been trying to convince people for like 20, 30, 40 years in Britain that these rape gangs have been going on, and yeah, and they have been religiously motivated and actually ethnically, racially motivated. Pakistanis, they hate white people a lot. People don't understand this. There's a lot of racial hatred towards white people. They still haven't forgiven them from crusades, even though they had nothing to do with it. Yeah, not
The
the white people, like
Pakistanis had
the
nothing to do.
Pakistanis had nothing to do with
Imagine
it.
Pakistanis participating in a crusade.
I mean, like, because they
Where the
think
fuck would
themselves,
they even come from?
because they all have this complex. They all think that they're Arabs and they don't want to be associated with Indians, even though they are actual Indians, right? So I had never had an issue saying that I'm ethnically Indian because my parents are from Pakistan. They're most likely the parentage goes back to India, because what's your problem with that? Like, it's just ethnic, like,
Pakistan is just Hindus that got conquered by Islam.
yeah, exactly.
It's
Like,
basically that.
that's the same with Bangladesh as well. It's all of it is India. So I don't know what
Yeah.
their gripe is with that. Why they can't come to terms with that they're not Arabs. They like always licking their asses all the time. Like, and Arabs hate
I
that.
think it's like the same syndrome some Christians in America are like
Yeah,
they think Jews are like some kind of superhumans
yeah,
and and then we have the
mm,
Muslim world that think Arabs are some kind of
yeah, yeah,
superior humans.
yeah.
And it's
But like, the Americans end up hating the superhumans of their imagination in Jews, whereas like these Pakistanis and stuff, they worship the superhumans of Arabs,
no, no.
right?
I think there is a healthy Bible Belt in America that actually like
Okay, yeah,
sees
okay,
Jews like some chosen
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, yeah. I mean, I like the Jews because just
yeah,
because
yeah.
like so much have been done to them, and still look at
I,
them, like, bloody hell, they kick ass. Like, um, they persevere all the time. Uh, but yeah, I mean, coming to the Jews, actually, um, what's recently happened, like, this is why I'm saying, like, it's hard for to make people understand this, because past 30, 40 years as well, where people are trying to wake them up about these rape gangs and stuff, people just do not want to believe that other human beings can be this horrible, right? Because they think all human beings are equal. They don't understand all human beings are not equal. All cultures are not equal. All people do not think like you. All people do not have the same priorities like you.
nor
There
the
are,
capacity, nor
or
the
the
capacity.
or nor the capacity, exactly. When you indulge too much with your cousins, then your capacity lowers
Maybe
over
not
time.
even that. Maybe it could even be
Maybe just like,
socio-economic.
yeah,
It could be any parameter that makes you incapable
yeah.
of understanding higher thought.
Hmm.
It's not
It's not
maybe
just that, yeah. It's
yeah.
not just
It
that,
could be
but
anything.
their
Yeah,
percentage is high.
yeah,
So
yeah.
60, 70 percentage, like, is high. you know,
Uh,
yeah, and that's over generation. That's not just one generation. you know.
oh, you notice with some people like you have to lower your own intelligence to have
Yeah,
interactions.
exactly, and they like, I have seen this, like, narrative being played out as well, like in media all the time as well. Like, oh, the Americans do that a lot, right? Because Americans, like, America is pretty unique in a way that only the best of people used to go over there, right? Now, like, obviously that's a different matter. So they had the best of, like, even the Muslims that were going over there, they might not be the best as in the economical status, but they were determined and stuff. They wanted to make something of themselves, and they went over there because they loved America and the freedom it gave.
And also, American culture is very dominant, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when
And
Islam
they have
goes
a
to America, it
constitution.
dies because
Yeah,
America pushes it down.
this is the thing, like, because there's a difference, because they have a constitution which is legally binding, right? So Britain has a constitution, but it's an evolving constitution, because it that's how it's supposed to be for England, for Britain, because they are supposed to evolve as a culture and not be held by the constitution, right? It's a different
Soon
way.
it's Islamic. Soon it's Islamic.
Yeah, this is why they should have kept a lot of cultures out of. Anyways, another matter. But people don't believe it because they think like, oh, if you give people the same things, or they have the same issues, oh, he has the same issues with his wife like I do. I'm a white guy. He has the same thing as well. It's like, yeah, that might be true, but Mariam is gonna get the shit beat out of her, kicked out of her when she goes home, and Jessica won't. Right, so there's a huge difference over there in the application of the those, the
Yeah.
solutions to the
I
problem.
guarantee you, Muslims are not thinking about
No,
same day to day problems or
they don't
issues
have the
that
same respect as well for
no
people.
no
No,
no like normal white people. I think they're, not to be racist towards white people, but I think most are living very like shallow lives where their biggest problem is basically a relationship problem, and the biggest stress is maybe work related and stuff like this.
which is good for
But
them. This is
sure,
what their
but
civilization has given them. This is the
uh,
gift of their
good.
civilization.
Good, but
Yeah,
you should also not be naive about
exactly.
people who have struggles, who
Yeah,
have bigger plans, bigger
yeah,
struggles, bigger
yeah,
inspirations, have have been into war, have seen all of this, are
mm,
capable of things that you would
yeah,
never be yourself. You would
yeah,
never kill someone,
yeah,
right? But
yeah,
these people will,
yeah.
and
And
so,
won't even think about it. They won't have PTSD from it. You know.
no, no,
Mm,
no, no. Uh, uh, and these some of these white people, they absolutely don't have any
no.
perspective. They just don't.
Yeah.
And they it's very rude actually to go to people like this who are living a
Mm,
blissful life, and go to them and be like, oh, look at all of this craziness and bullshit.
yeah.
Of course they're gonna reject it. They're
Yeah.
logical beings. They don't want to have to do
Yeah.
anything with that. They're
Yeah.
living happy lives. And I think mostly leftists with Islam is about this,
Yeah.
because Islam is something that they just cannot win. They just
Mm,
can't get over it. They can't liberate it. They can't integrate. They
mm,
don't know what to do. So
yeah.
so what they can do is to just let it happen,
Yeah.
uh, and not get their hands dirty. And
Yeah.
actually, to think about it, to look at it logically, you and me are the dummies here. You and
Mm,
me are the dummies here. We're getting our hands dirty. We're getting yelled at. We're getting all of this bullshit. We are worrying ourselves to
yeah.
sleep. We're stressing.
Yeah.
We're not blissful. They are
Yeah.
blissful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, like, sometimes I think like we're fighting for people that don't want to really fight. So that's why they need to activate. That's why I'm trying to activate. It's like, it's not like, my home is going to be lost because I made my home into Britain, but this is your ancestral home. You're not just going to lose your home, you're going to lose your entire fucking identity, that your
It's a
ancestors
shame. It's a
built.
damn shame, because you
Yeah.
you 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 don't have this everywhere in the world. You don't have peace,
No.
understanding, science, secularity, all of this liberal thought, gay people being gay, women being free, children playing on the street. You don't
And
have this.
innovation, creativity, innovation,
Yeah,
that comes from freedom of speech, and able to discourse and able to discuss and argue and disagree openly, right?
and
That's
not
where
take it so
creativity comes from.
seriously, and
Yeah.
that's like, not take it so serious. And maybe that's because they don't really take anything so seriously, because their lives don't really have serious problems, and
Mm,
that's why when you and me come into their faces and be like, oh my god, this is very serious, they just
yeah.
compute because
Yeah.
nothing is actually serious for
And,
them.
and
Because
that's why they make villain of people like Tommy Robinson and stuff, because he's so in their face.
yes,
Because he's seen that. Like, people don't understand. Like, when he was pretty young, his cousin was raped, and was a victim of these rape gangs, right? He started like from this personally as well. He has helped so many people and stuff. He has seen the horrors. He knows the horrors as much as ex-Muslims do. That's why he's so incensed. It's just because he's white and working class that he gets rejected by people, because they don't
yeah,
want to hear him. And this is the thing, like, people would not understand what was happening. They just thought, like, okay, if we look the other way, it won't happen. But if you read the transcripts of the court cases and stuff, where some of the judges have even said, like, oh, those girls, um they consented, as if a 12-year-old girl can consent to six men raping her at the same time, right? It's ludicrous, right? There's cases of this 11-year-old girl that was kept over there, and she was raped by
that's why it's
multiple.
called grooming. Technically,
Yeah,
the 12-year-old can consent technically, but that's why it's called grooming. The 12
yeah,
year old doesn't know what she's doing.
yeah, yeah. but
That-
but like, in that instance, right, in that sort of scenario. But like, even from that point of view, even like you're saying, if it classifies as at least as grooming, right? Even if you're not classifying it as rape, even though it is rape, right?
it
It's
is rape,
it's
but
still
it's because
pedophilia.
of the
It is still.
grooming. If
Yeah,
you're saying, oh, this girl consented, oh, maybe she did, but it's because of the grooming she
yeah.
consented to be raped.
And even if she consented, right? Even if she consented, and
She's 12.
even if it's, yeah, she's 12 and the guy is 50. Like, what the fuck are we talking about over here? This case of this 11-year-old girl, and it's I hate bringing this up, even in my own mind, because it's so. They were burning cigarette butts on her. They raped her, like, six men and 11-year-old girl. There's cases of they were putting things in their, anally, so that it expands their. It just, yeah, so that they could rape her more. Like, I just, yeah, people just don't understand the depravity of that, and it's normal for these fucking dickheads, because that's how they grow up. They grow up in a culture and in a religion that says it's okay to demonize white girls because they're not human beings. This is what led to Gazans as well raping and killing Jews, because they don't consider them as human beings anymore. And this is why, even though there's ceasefire now and they're releasing the hostages, the childrens of Gaza are out there with guns and celebrating that Hamas has won, and still the lefties won't see it. They just cannot admit that they are wrong about these people, these specific people of this religion. And I don't like, there's no moderation in this religion. Like, good people choose to be bad Muslims because they're good people. That doesn't make Islam good, it makes Islam even worse. Because if Christians, on the other hand, decided to be good Christians, they would not turn into rapey men. you know I don't know how clearly can we put this across,
Well,
to these
like I
people.
always say, the problem with Christianity is that Christians are not following Christianity.
Yeah,
The problem with Islam is that Muslims are following Islam.
yeah,
That's what it is. But yeah,
it's depressing. It's
but
depressing to see.
like we talked before we started recording, that in Finland we don't really the things that happen in UK, like the grooming gangs, Elon Musk and Starmer, and all of this, what's going on a couple of weeks in the UK is non-existent. Our media does not touch anything. Tommy Robinson, like Elon Musk, gets touched in the media, but it's more about like, oh, he's a threat to democracy, he's a threat to free speech, he should be sanctioned by the EU, and we're having talks about this, not actually the issue he has raised, not actually what has
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
happened.
That's what
and,
happens all
and
the time. Yeah.
none of it's like, if we didn't have X, we wouldn't know anything.
Mm. I just
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, I don't know, like how people detach themselves from this, because I do put the blame on the people a lot as well. It's like we were talking about, like, yeah, you want to have a normal life and stuff like that, but you also have personal and social responsibilities, right? You cannot just, like, if you're just living for yourself, just yourself, your generation, your life, then fine, you would do that. But if you have a sense like your life is not just your life is also about securing the future generations life, their prosperity and stuff like that as well. And then, that there's some thought of like what you leave behind is important, right? Then these people would not just be like Tom Bombadils. Then they would actually want to do something about it, because, like, all this good life, all this gift that the Western civilization has given these people has not just happened because people refused to do something about things. They have sacrificed their lives. They have, like, they have gone through suffering and stuff to give you their ancestors have gone through these things to give them this gift of comfort that they now have, this innovation, this, like, all of these technologies and stuff would never have happened if the curious mind of the Western people did not have, like, could not express itself, right? If it was repressed all the way through, right, till now, we would not have internet. I can guarantee that we would not have internet. We would not, like, have any innovative things. We would have, like, little, like, shitty things, like, we would in 2025 we will be living as if we were in 1500, maybe, at best.
How many innovations have you seen coming out of Europe last 10 years?
Nothing, because of this reason.
Nothing.
Only
Yeah.
only from Elon Musk.
And that's America.
Yeah.
You'll
Nothing
only have
from
innovation from
Europe.
America, and that's
Yeah.
that. Nothing coming out of Europe anymore.
Yeah. Even China is doing more now
Yeah.
because they've learned from the West and they're innovating.
Uh,
Japan would do stuff because they've
if
always done stuff.
and if it, especially like Finland is a very good example. We used to have Nokia.
Yeah, Nokia
Every
started in
year,
fucking
every
Finland.
year we would have a new innovation.
Yeah.
We used to have a lot of new gaming companies
Mm.
like Angry Birds, Clash of Clans. All of these are Finnish
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
They were big things. But last 10 years we don't own Nokia anymore. We sold it to Microsoft. These gaming companies, no new ones are coming up. It's done. Like we're
Yeah.
not innovating anything anymore on
Yeah.
technology or anything that.
I mean,
And it's
innovation is
and I
like,
think it's has to do with this wokeism.
yeah,
Like
it is. It is because that's the innovation, DEI. That's the obsession, diversity, HR. That's the innovation that they're doing now. Creating
that's not
fucking,
innovation.
yeah. I mean, that's the mental innovation that they're doing. Oh, we can
You're not
turn men
innovating
into women
anything.
and women into men. Oh, wow.
It's
Fucking hell.
just controlling the
Yeah.
demographics. Like
Yeah.
doesn't achieve anything.
Yeah.
It's
And it's gonna, like,
reminds.
even like when it comes to, oh, they want to solve the world's problem, actually it puts you at a worse position to be able to solve anyone's problem, your own problems, let alone the world's problem. Because if you're not going to innovate and stuff like that, how are you gonna solve the problems that you
Are
wish
you,
to solve in Africa?
how are you gonna do anything if you don't know
No.
your gender?
Yeah.
How are you gonna do anything in life if the most basic thing that a toddler should know,
Yeah.
that a toddler recognizes, and you're not capable of?
Yeah.
you're not capable of anything else,
Yeah,
because everything else is built on top of your own ego and
yeah,
understanding of your own gender and who you are, and how you perceive the
yeah,
world and who you understand and what do you understand. All of this is built on top of these very simple basic things. I'm a man, I'm a male, I'm a female, I speak this language, and I have these body parts and this and that. And if you don't even know that, and you can't even distinguish that, and you're
yeah,
confused about the most basic things, and I think this is part of some, it's obviously a psychological
yeah,
operation. The
yeah,
whole trans whatever, the last couple of years, it's been a massive psychological operation,
yeah.
that especially targets people's development, and
Mm.
especially targeting kids. These all of this trans kids
And
bullshit. It's
especially targeting white people as well. That has to be mentioned.
especially
Yeah,
because
they are
Muslims are
susceptible
left
to
out
it.
of it.
Yeah.
Muslims are left out of it. Nothing is
No,
demanded from Muslims. No
no.
pronouns, no
Oh,
gendering, no
black
nothing.
people as well. Everyone
No,
else. Yeah,
no, they can be as homophobic as they
yeah,
want. They can
yeah,
talk against this as they want,
yeah,
because they're left out of it. It's not
yeah.
expected from them. But
Mm,
all the white people have to be very confused about their
mm,
genders and very weak, and I think it's part of a psychological operation
yeah, yeah.
to break the spark that Western civilization had,
Mm,
that made them
yeah,
different compared to the rest of the
yeah,
people. And the plan is to make them as stupid
yeah.
as the rest of the
There's
people.
no other way that the communists can take over without
Yeah,
destroying everything first, right? Because they can't overpower them because they don't have the smart people with them, right? So they have to make everyone dumber, which will be really dumb, so that they can be the more intelligent one, right? Because I saw this speech like I was
why
in
do
Turkey.
leftists love dumb immigrants and hate the smart
Yeah,
ones?
this
Uh,
reason. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh, like so I can't reveal where I was, but there was this person giving that speech and stuff, and she was Marxist and stuff like that. A black woman during Black History Month and stuff like that. Right. So she
black
was,
and Marxist.
yeah, exactly. And she was talking about how Marxism is, good and whatnot and stuff like that, and about woman liberation and women's rights and blah 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 stuff. But she was also mentioned in passing and stuff as well, like how she had to do something for her husband because he likes that like she was explained in those moments her role as a wife, right? Which is normal, like people understand that wife and husbands, they both have different roles, natural roles, right? That she was exercising that, right? But if a white for a white person, that would be sexist for a man he would be misogynist to demand that.
Mm-hmm,
But in
mm-hmm.
your own grouping of black woman and black man, you're okay doing that for a black man. So you
Yeah, yeah,
understand these roles, you naturally understand these roles, but they're just not for, no, the white woman need to be feminist. I
yeah.
don't need to be feminist because it
It's
destroys
called
them.
intersectional feminism.
Yeah, I mean, because it destroys them, right? It destroys their generations and stuff.
Yeah,
They are less likely to have more kids. And I think so. It is that sinister. It is that replacement sort of
yeah.
thing. So there's less white people.
Of course.
And the world would be worse.
They're getting told that don't make children. At the
Yeah.
same time,
They're making
everybody
tons of
else is
children.
getting told to
Yeah.
make more children.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's obvious. It's
yeah.
obvious.
It's such an obvious Marxist plot. And this is like why communism and Islam are like merging more and more, which is like it's so obvious. Like Islam is such a perfect religion for communism. If communists had a god, it would be Allah. Like he's such a it fits so perfectly everything. I think so. Maybe Karl Marx had an influence from Islam. you know?
No, socialists have always liked Islam.
Yeah,
Look at Hitler's relationship
yeah, exactly.
with
Yeah,
Islam. Look
yeah,
at Stalin's
yeah,
relationship with Islam. Like, even though these were supposed to be atheist socialist uh, systems that didn't like religion, no, they just persecuted Christians.
yeah,
They liked the rest. They liked
yeah,
Islam.
Yeah.
just like nowadays they love Islam,
Yeah.
but they just don't like
Yeah.
Christianity. And the most mind-boggling thing is like, oh, you're a liberal, you like freedom of speech, you like human rights, you like gay rights and that, but you hate the most liberal religion by supporting and
Yeah.
supporting the most regressive ones. It's
Eh,
weird. It's
I
weird.
think so. It's because like Islam doesn't really have a spiritual element to it, so you don't really have to believe it's a set of rules and guidance, and like you have like you do it by systems and stuff, right? And in a way, it's like it's a reasoned, wrongly reasoned, but it's a reasoned religion. It's not a spiritually contrived region
And
religion.
Allah is not the
He's
heavenly
practical. He's not a heavenly.
forgiven.
Yeah. No.
He's not the heavenly forgiving Father and
Yeah.
all knowing and personal friend and
No.
understanding and no, it's how do you would know this? Allah is more like a boogeyman. He's more like a, you should be afraid of him, and he has a set of rules, and he's a
Yeah.
like he'll punish you, and he's like a boogeyman they used to control Muslims.
Yeah.
It's not about like despite me being atheist, I do recognize that in Christianity it's more about philosophy and salvation
Yeah.
and thinking about your own sins and trying to forgive and getting
Yeah.
forgiven and
And it's also
atoning
there's
for
an
them. And
evolutionary aspect to your thought as well in Christianity. It gives you enough space to evolve your faith over time, over centuries and stuff. Islam doesn't do that.
that's why it hasn't evolved at all. It's still the same
Yeah.
Mohammedan
But
cult that
it's a
it
good
was.
like it's a good like controlling tactic as well, right? Because it's very materialistic Islam as well. It's even the idea of heaven. It's a bargaining. It's a negotiation and bargaining element
It's
to it,
sex
right?
and money.
Yeah,
The
it's sex
heaven is
and
sex and
money
money.
and stuff, right? So
Yeah,
God has
woman.
to reward you in heaven. Oh, sorry, in Christianity, the concept of heaven is like you going to heaven. Like that's it.
It's much higher than just
Yeah, exactly. Like
money and a woman.
yeah, you don't need the motivation for materialistic elements or sexual desires or whatever.
You won't need
Going
any
to heaven,
material.
like yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
I
completely
don't think
different.
Muslims even have this concept. They
No,
don't understand this higher realm,
no,
so-called thinking that a lot of like Buddhists do. I think even Buddhists understand this even
yeah,
better than Christians
yeah,
most of the time.
yeah,
That there might be a higher plane, and you might
yeah,
achieve a higher consciousness,
yeah,
and in this nirvana, so-called, the material world doesn't really mean anything
mm,
because it doesn't exist.
yeah,
That's the real
yeah,
the spiritual world is the real one, and
yeah,
this is all material. It's just
yeah,
doesn't really matter. But I don't think Muslims have this concept
mm,
or ever have to have this concept evolved. It's very materialistic, even though like they like to turn it around and be like, oh, we don't care about dunya, we don't care
yeah,
about the material world, all we care
yeah,
is jannah, we care about the heaven. And they proclaim this very projectively, but I don't think they understand
no,
exactly what the Jannah is, what the heaven is,
no,
and they expect material gifts,
yeah,
sex, orgies, virgin
mm,
girls, honey,
yeah,
milk,
exactly.
gold.
And I think so. Like if you think about it, it's a bit similar to even the concept of Valhalla. You know, even though there's a
But
slight
even
difference.
Valhalla
There's
has like this
yeah,
philosophical.
the element was like you could have endless wars over there. Like as a warrior, that's like
That's
it's not about
philosophical.
money and stuff. Like that's philosophical. Like you
The
actually
reward is
glory
not
to get.
actually a reward. The reward is
Yeah,
that you get to do what you like to do,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
basically the concept of heaven. You get to do what
yeah,
you like to do. And I think even Valhalla is a higher concept
yeah,
religion than
yeah.
Islam is.
So
Islam
it's
is one
like
of the
based on
lowest.
honor and stuff like that as well. Like
Yeah,
that they created. Islam is just it's just even if you think about like the idea that Muhammad going on a winged donkey to meet God, to meet Allah,
it's not very deep.
that itself sets a tone, right? Because it's a set of negotiation.
Yeah,
It's just a negotiation. It's not, and I think so. Maybe on a level, that's where Judaism might have issues as well, because that's also like Moses going back and forth to the mountain to
Yeah, but
negotiate.
in Jewish stories, they have some kind of a context, and they have some
Oh
kind of a
yeah, yeah,
teaching,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then have a
yeah,
higher thought
yeah,
behind those
yeah,
negotiations. When in Islam, it's more like a children's psychological trick. For example, oh Muhammad, why do we pray 5 times a day? Oh, because you had to pray 50. But I went to
yeah,
Allah and negotiated it
yeah,
down to 45. But
yeah,
then you came back and said, why 45?
yeah,
And came back and did so. Be grateful that I did
yeah,
all of that work, and do at least the 5.
yeah,
Don't complain about it.
yeah,
It's not too much. You could be doing 50, right?
yeah.
This is their
This is
the
yeah,
the most
yeah,
the most highest philosophy
yeah,
that they
yeah. I
have
mean,
in
it's
their
like,
religion.
and also like, why should I fight Muhammad? Like, oh, if you fight, you'll get like, and you die, you get 72 virgins. You know, uh,
That's it.
okay, fine. Like, I'll fight then. Like,
How to control a horde of wild desert men?
yeah,
How do you control a horde of wild
yeah,
desert men? Promise them virgins.
yeah. And if you compare that to Christianity, it's like, why should you fight? Why should you fight for Christ, right? Yeah, because Christ died for your sins.
Yeah,
Like,
it's,
you
it's,
don't need any more convincing. It's like, he already died for your sins, so you should like fight for it. They don't need any whores or anything like that to convince them otherwise. Completely changes the dynamic of how the culture is going to be developed. Doesn't matter if it's factually true or not, but like the mythologies structure the narrative of your culture, and how the people gonna have their thoughts develop and evolve within it. The incentive system is completely different. This is why Christianity is important for the Western civilization, because it orientates people a bit differently than saying it's just your life. You just live for the material incentives and stuff. If you don't get those material incentives, then you should never do anything, right? You should only fight for your country if you're paid to do so, if you're in an army, right? So it's like, no, that's completely wrong. They are professional fighters and stuff like that, yeah. But even this is why even retired soldiers would come back in Israel, because they are oriented differently. They have a strong Jewish ethos, right? They have volunteers coming from all over the world. They don't need to fight. They're not being paid to fight, but they're coming for a higher cause. This is the connection, I think. So even though like most of the Jews, they are probably just cultural Jews. They're not. They're most atheists and stuff, but that ethos is already baked in.
uh, well, when ISIS was in Syria and Iraq, they had this propaganda of, oh, look how Muslims are coming all over the world to
Hmm.
fight for our cause and fight for Allah. But actually, they were mercenaries. They were
Yeah.
getting paid. They were getting promised houses, the stolen houses of
Hmm.
other people. They were getting promised wives,
Yeah.
sex slaves, all the girls they can capture, they
Hmm.
could keep,
Yeah.
money, guns. And this was the main motivation. Nobody
Hmm.
actually is going to fight for ISIS to gain a heaven
Yeah.
access to heaven. That's just a little bonus they get
Hmm.
on top of it. But the actual motivation was to get a house and all of that. And we
Yeah.
actually had a Somali Finnish guy in 2015, 2016 who joined ISIS and made YouTube videos from Raqqa,
Hmm.
and encouraging other Somalis in Finland to come into Raqqa, because you get a free house, you get a donkey, you get a
Yeah.
wife, you get. And he was riding a donkey, and he was like, "You get a donkey." Yeah,
And like, it's another very interesting point that you put out as well, like, why those people didn't come to fight for ISIS, because there was no incentives and stuff. But there were a lot of white British people who converted, like not a lot, like some of the white British people who converted to Islam, who went to fight for ISIS, not
yeah, we
expecting
had those
reward.
too. White woman,
Yeah,
yeah.
but like, they were not expecting reward, right? Because their cultural mindset had been set for a very long time, through generations differently. They were actually going to fight for Allah, because that's their reward, right? As they would fight for Christ in the earlier times, right? Their orientation is very different. And I think so.
And
You
many
can
of them got very shocked when they went to ISIS to see that it's just a ragtag bunch of
exactly. And
material
I think so. That's the
terrorists.
same. That's actually the same mindset of even the Chechens on the Russian side, because they are fighting for their religion, right, and stuff. They don't need incentives because they are Western minded people over time who have become Muslims, but they live among Western people enough to not have the mindset of these Arabs and, you know, sort of people. So it's like, it's interesting that even within Islam you can have a change of orientation depending on the culture, depending
Yeah,
on the cultural input. So there might be some hope for Islam in that way, but the number of people who are from bad cultures is way, way, way more within the Islamic horde. You know, they are the ones who are in billions, so they are always going to influence more. And these little pockets of few hundred people here and there, comparatively, they're not going to influence that much more. Yeah,
yeah.
and I think so.
Oh.
We should end our conversation on that. That Islam is a bad coded ideology and it needs to be rejected and it needs to be thrown out, and it needs to stop being recognized as a religion so that it doesn't get any religious exemptions anymore.
Well, I used to think that like, oh, all religions are just religions and they're all bad and this
Yeah.
and that, and lately I've been thinking that Islam is not actually a religion in
Yeah.
a sense that Western people think what that
Yeah.
religion is. It's a very fascist,
Yeah.
ideological, political, theocratic
Yeah.
system. It's
It's not a spiritual investigation or
no,
exploration.
no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, not at all. And it actually it denies it. If you
Yeah.
know anything about Islam, it denies any spiritual investigation. It's like,
Mm.
oh, you're gonna get possessed by demons, you're gonna get
Yeah.
possessed by jinns, and
Yeah.
you shouldn't do that, and don't learn about space, and don't
Yeah.
look at space, don't look up, or don't study this and don't read
Yeah.
that because you're gonna get crazy,
Mm.
and Allah is gonna curse you. And I heard a lot of these things when I was
Yeah.
growing up from the Kurdish Muslim
Mm.
community, that you oh when I got excited about, for example, like a space documentary, oh, they were talking about
Yeah.
black holes, and I was getting told by adults that, oh, don't go too deep into space, you might lose your religion and you might go crazy, and like you're not encouraging people to
Yeah.
actually learn about anything. You're
Very weird,
quite
isn't
the
it?
opposite.
Very weird, isn't it? Because for a person who actually believed their religion to be true, they would say, "Oh, go more deep into it, because
Yes,
you will
you will
strengthen your
find
faith."
it.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
find God, like, in those
No,
things.
no, no, no. If you use your brains, you will lose
Yeah,
religion.
it's like,
It's like,
oh, interesting.
wait a minute.
Yeah,
You're making me use my brain.
yeah. That's the only way that they have kept Islam for 1400 years. A set of people not using their brains.
Oh God.
All
Oh,
right.
this was good to talk to you,
Yeah,
Mars.
good to talk. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.